Hey folks, we're live from the Hoboken Historical Museum. Thanks for tuning in to our weekly show called Hoboken Talks. It's 7 o'clock, and so glad that you could join us again. Of course, this is being broadcast live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and we do archive it on the museum's YouTube channel, and so you can check it out forever. Past recipients or past honorees or interviewees that we've had have been John Kahn, Danny Schott, Jack Silbert, and Mark Singleton, and Leah Lustikoff. And my name's Bob Foster. I'm the host this evening, but our hosts do change. And I'm sitting next to Chris Lopez. The title card says Christopher. Sorry about that. But he likes to be known as Chris. Yeah, I'm Chris. And he'll be coming on the screen in a moment. There he is. Very cool. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can we do a little fist bump here?
Hey.
Excellent. As we've pointed out before, we are broadcasting live, and you'll notice we are not wearing masks. That's because we do have a sheet of plexi in between us, so we feel protected. And I was joking of Chris before, one of the great thrills of doing this and hosting is that we get to talk fairly close, fairly intimately, without masks on. Yeah. And that's something that has not happened for almost a year now. So kind of crazy.
This is really cozy. It's a very good plexiglass setup that you guys got.
Yep. Yeah. And so we've invited, most of the people we've invited to come on the show live in Hoboken, grew up in Hoboken, hanging out in Hoboken for some time. In your case, it's a little different. You're a photographer, and we've only known each other maybe a month, I would say. And we had a great conversation on the phone, which we hope will recreate here now. And you said that you were really committed to a project. And you are a photographer. And what is your project?
So essentially, I'm working on a project that is essentially a historical look at arsons that took place here in Hoboken in the late 70s and early 80s. And essentially, it's kind of just like a look back on that history, trying to document it and kind of share some of the stories with people who lived during that time, so that they can speak about their experiences.
Sure.
And not have this history kind of disappear or diminish, as so often history. Some histories that tends to happen if we don't document them, if we don't speak about them, if we don't share them within our communities. There's a big risk that it goes forgotten. I just think that it's an important story to tell. It's something significant, I think, that happened in this community. It's a time that a great transition took place in the history of Hoboken. And it should be remembered and memorialized.
Okay. And then, I guess tell us how you heard about it. People might be a little confused. You're not from Hoboken. Right. You're a young guy. You were not born. What year are you born?
1984.
Okay. So you were born in sort of when things were hot in Hoboken. But you are not, you didn't experience it. You didn't hear stories about it growing up, probably.
No.
But maybe is this indicative of other projects you've worked on? Is this different or?
I'm a lover of history. I spent a lot of time on the internet, browsing the internet for snippets of history. And so honestly, I think the idea of Hoboken, what Hoboken is, and kind of the gentrification that looms around it, right, is something that I think I've been interested in for a very long time. I've seen areas become gentrified. I'm from the South Bronx, and that's in the process of being gentrified, which is really astonishing. Over the years, recently they've started marketing and calling it the Piano District, because there used to be a piano factory there in the Bronx, and so they're kind of trying to rebrand the area and the community to have more affluent people come in. And so then, that transpiring, those histories tend to be very painful. And so I don't know, that those stories, that transition really just resonates with me, and is something that, I don't know, I feel compelled to want to investigate. So yeah, the idea to focus or to do work here in Hoboken kind of just came suddenly for me. But again, I think that, I think about transitioning communities and transitioning neighborhoods, you know, um, eh, you know, often. So it
Sure.
just kind of just dawned upon me,
Hmm.
and I did some research, and I learned about the arsons, and just decided to dig a little deeper and deeper and deeper. And so, yeah, now here I am, and I'm here in this museum learning.
And how is the museum? How do you think the museum can help you with this?
So a big part of my project, the idea of the work is to kind of document like archival materials that pertain to the history. It's kind of like the things that are tucked away almost, that no one really sees. I'm really interested in kind of like bringing those things up to the surface, bringing them to light, giving them new life. And I feel that I can do that, with photographs. You photograph an object that pertains to a moment in time, a moment in history. There's something to be said about isolating that object. It makes the viewer say, well, why? Why did this photographer decide to what is there about this object that there must be something important or something to learn here. And when you create a narrative, a story, a series of images, it can be very profound, and that's what I'd like to do for the history of the arsons.
Right.
Yeah.
And I must say, in conversations we've had, you really have done your homework on, shall we say, the newspaper archives, museums archives, but I'm not going to do it, but I could say probably an address in Hoboken, and you could probably tell me the year of the fire, and how many people died from flames or smoke. And that's the reason we have sort of extended ourselves to you in making our archives available, because you're a serious player in this. Later, we'll see some of your other photo projects, and people will see your commitment and highly skilled photographer aesthetically.
Thank you.
And then you mentioned one of the reasons we wanted to do this is because, I just know from being of the era that, we're talking about, from my time in Hoboken, that if anyone, shall we say, was here when the fires were happening, or, was born here and obviously experienced the fires, it still comes up in conversations more than any other topic historically in Hoboken. Parking and taxes are big, but in terms of, something tragedy, I'll say, and, people will reference the fires by the one that was probably closest to them geographically where they lived, or of course, if they knew someone.
Right.
And one of the reasons we've decided to do Hoboken Talks is really to help you find sources. So we're hoping people will watch this. I think when we create the edited piece for this, at the end, we'll put your contact information.
Great.
And of course, people can contact the museum. And we generally meet a person a week, I would say, who walks in the door and will reference the fires. And maybe they didn't personally experience it, but it's one of those things that still unsettles people not quite sure what their responsibility is. What should they do? Should they have done more then? But most of these fires would be 40 years ago or more. Yeah. So the project you're doing is historical, but there are still people who remember it.
Yeah. And I'm learning more and more that Hoboken is a really small place, and like everyone knows each other.
Yep.
And it's just like a lot of small town politics.
Uh-huh.
So I think it has been for the short time that I have been working on the project. I feel like every one person I meet has something huge to share. I think I think that's a testament to the size of this place.
Yeah, there's no degrees of separation on most things.
And so I think that's very interesting that if you were, from Hoboken during these times, you have something to say about this.
Right. And so you talked about a portrait aspect of this project. We talked mainly about artifacts.
Yeah. Yeah. So the photographically, my intentions are to kind of, again, mix archival materials with portraits of people who have a stake in this history, who are a part of it. And that's everyone and anyone that wants to share their story and speak would have the opportunity to have their photograph taken. And so the idea is to be able to take a portrait of a person that depicts them, in a sincere way, and even moreover, kind of depicts them in a way like with a key thing that they shared, rather,
Right.
So if you say, well, I remember this fire. At this address, maybe we'll take a picture in front of the building.
Right.
Something like that. You know what I mean?
And
kind of
would you, we haven't really discussed it, but
Yeah.
would you photograph them with an artifact from the fire?
That's very interesting. That's something that definitely I would consider.
Right.
Yeah. The idea is to make powerful images, images that can be lasting, and that can leave a mark on the viewers.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm not opposed to taking portraits of people.
Just popped out. I don't know.
That's a totally great
We'll have
idea.
to talk to Rand if an artifact can leave
Totally
the
great
building,
idea.
but it depends what it is.
Yeah.
And I should mention, we usually put a different image on the screen behind us, and today's image relates to your project.
Yeah.
This is a photograph taken by Michael Flanagan.
Okay.
A lot of people would remember him. He's since passed on, but we do own his collection of images.
Yeah.
And I won't say his main concern was the fires, but this is taken, I believe, in 1981 in the fall. And this is the El Dorado building.
Yep.
Which is, I'm not sure the exact address, but it's on 12th Street.
1202 Washington Street.
Okay, 12. Yeah, there's probably two addresses for here. One would be on the front of the building, and the fire is on the side.
Right.
This was one of, anyone who is like geographically close to any of these fires will probably say that was the worst fire.
Yeah.
In my case, this was the worst fire. I had just moved around the corner.
This was a pretty big fire.
Do you remember any specifics from your research?
Yeah, this was a fire. 1202 Washington. I want to say that 1202 Washington happened 1981.
It is, yes, right? 1981 in the fall.
Right, 1981.
Right. And there were quite a few deaths.
I believe this was the really, really bad fire where entire families.
Yeah, I think there was one or two families fairly large, probably Hispanic background.
Yeah,
and many children.
Yeah, I think that it was a Hispanic family, and I hope if anyone's listening to this and I'm incorrect on any of this information, please, I guess,
don't get mad.
Yeah, don't get mad. A lot of names, a lot of addresses, a lot of fires.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems with, I'm investigating arson, I'm investigating gentrification.
Yeah.
There's, each fire is a little different,
Yep. Yep.
and obviously the community, I'll say, profited in a way from this type of event, whether it was, if it actually was
Right.
arson, meaning for profit.
Right. I think,
but it's, the fires, that type of investigation is so hard to do.
yeah, it's
40 years later too.
Yeah, absolutely. And really my aim or my goal is not to investigate, who done it.
Right.
It's more so to, like you said, take a look at, there was absolutely something to gain from all of them.
Sure.
Regardless, right?
Right.
The property values are going to go up, whether it was indeed someone in the building or, someone in the neighborhood, or if it was.
Sure. And I think technically, I'm not sure any was ever proved to be arson,
No.
in a legal sense, like a fire investigation. I'm not sure.
No, some of the buildings were deemed arson.
Okay.
Certainly, because there was clear evidence of arson.
Sure.
There was, I think, for 1202 Washington, they had found for this particular fire. I'm not sure if it was a couch on the second floor that went up. I could be confusing that with another fire, but in some circumstances, they found accelerant from the top floor all the way down to the bottom floor. Just gasoline.
Right.
I mean, who was?
No, I know. I'm
pouring gasoline down
I'm just
every
saying the
single
way
step
it was
and then lighting it
handled
up.
legally at the time.
Right. I mean, it's very hard to convict on arson.
Right.
Like
Unless you catch the person with the gas
at
can
best
in their
you can
hand.
source how it began, but to actually get a conviction is not even just with the arsons in Hoboken, just arsons in general.
Right.
It's nil.
Sure. And of course, probably this fire investigation has come a long way in terms of a science and investigating to a degree. But a small town where we really able to handle that type of investigation, I don't know.
Right.
I did want to mention that if people do want to participate by texting in a question, we will see that on the screen. There's Ted Rowland saying hi. Hey, Ted, one of our trustees. Thanks for checking us out. And Ted is safe and sound, I think, in Jersey City tonight. Hey. He's still quarantined. But it's great to hear from you folks, and we will try to acknowledge you on the screen if you do chime in, and if you did have a question specifically. We're going to move on to a few of the slides that we have that are talking about, shall we say, your project.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe talk, like, here's a fire photo. We believe it's in our collection. It is probably I think we sourced it as a Daily News photo from the imagery on the back.
Yeah.
And the title was A Hoboken Fire.
Yeah.
And here's Tiffany Fisher, Councilman Fisher, being very modest with her texting title. And she's saying, this is amazing. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Appreciate it.
Tiffany, I'm not sure was a resident at the time, but she, is really on top of a lot of the issues in Hoboken, and something like the fires she hears a lot of conversation about from longtime residents.
Okay.
We also have Eric Kammer saying it's a difficult topic.
Yeah.
It definitely is. There was discussion, should we even do this topic? But, it's Hoboken, and Chris is doing this project. So to me, it's definitely, subject matter for sure. So anyway, here's a cropped photo. It's pretty much the way it is represented, I believe, when the Daily News presented the picture in newspapers. Yeah. So, what would you do with this artifact, the photograph, in terms of you changing, maybe, what do we say, changing the context by putting it together with something else?
Well, I think that's why it's really important for me to be able to speak with as many people as possible, because my work is informed by the things that they share and the stories that they share.
Right.
So I could speak with someone regarding a particular fire, and they might say something that sparks a visualization in my mind.
Right.
And then I'm off and running.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, how can I illustrate this thing that they just shared? And it's a big mix of things.
Right. Ellen Camerfray is chiming in that she does remember the fires, and is thankful that we're spotlighting it.
Right.
It doesn't take much to get people to talk about this subject.
That's good for me. Good for the work.
That's right. So any of you do want to connect with Chris on this. But when I was asking about like your project, like here's this photo of that we will call an artifact.
Yeah.
What would you do with it?
Yeah. Okay. So it depends. I have to. I'm not certain what fire this is, but I'm just by looking at the image, it appears to be a child. A lot of children were victims of these arsons. I don't know the exact number, but dozens of children.
Oh yeah,
died.
It depends if you do it over the period of years.
What years? Yeah,
sure.
And so it appears to be a child, and I don't know what this address is. But again, so what I would do is I would research this fire in particular. I would research this building. I would research who is this person. What is their heritage? Who were their parents? What were their aspirations? What did their parents do for work? What did their grandparents do for work? Where are they coming from? And I would take this big history and I would try to create a photograph that centers around all of that and this.
Okay.
Right? So it kind of like bridges.
Mm-hmm.
The reality, the humanity of this person,
right?
Instead of just such tragedy,
right?
You know what I'm saying? And it's tragic, and it there's no way to change that.
Sure,
but it's kind of give a voice.
And I'm just going to push it further. Like your ideal visual from this might be taking this picture.
Yeah.
Finding a relative of this person holding this picture,
right?
Or having, since this person, in a sense, the way they're photographed is a bit dehumanized.
Yeah.
If you could find a picture of that person, their high school yearbook picture, something like that.
It is. So it's exactly things like that,
right?
That I intend to create and share,
right? Yeah. Which we know is tough.
It's not an easy thing. Recently, I had obtained. I reached out to a photographer who was working during these times. He's working for, I guess, the Jersey Journal.
That was the paper of record of the day. Okay. It still exists,
right?
But.
Okay, so he was working as a staff photographer at the time, and he was covering the arsons, and he had sent me some photographs of his archival stuff. He was kind enough to share them with me and mail them over to me, and they're pretty intense. They're pretty harrowing. They're images of tragedy,
right?
And so then I've been working with those images, and it takes time. It's I think it also is developing, and that's why I look forward to our continued relationship at the museum, because it's not I could come and photograph an object, and it's almost kind of just like my first interaction, my first contact, what I'm saying, and then I go off into the world and I learn so many other things maybe about this object, and now I have a new idea, and I gotta go back and I gotta retake it. You just keep doing it until it's right, until it really says the thing that it's supposed to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that it can live finally.
Right. Yeah. Rand, who's the director of this project, meaning Hoboken Talks, just typed in that the title of this newspaper caption was one of 21 who died. So this was a biggie.
One of 21 that died. That must mean that this is
Could be Clinton.
This is 131 Clinton.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a fire at 131
Right.
Clinton then.
Right.
And 131 Clinton happened in 79.
Right. So it's one of the earlier ones.
Yeah, early-ish.
And,
I guess.
It's really interesting because people will talk about, all the fires were in the 80s,
Yeah.
and like that's when they moved here and their reference is experiencing it. But
Right.
someone who grew up here in the 70s would talk about those fires.
Yeah, for sure. It just, I think that there were more consecutive fires in the 80s.
Right.
They were happening
every day.
Yeah,
the
every day.
smoke hadn't left the air from one fire and then you had another one.
Had another fire.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah. But yeah, the fires, I mean, actually, now that I've been doing my research, Hoboken has a tremendous fire history.
Yeah. I mean, most old cities do,
Yeah.
and Hoboken, not that it's unique, but all our buildings are attached.
Yeah.
And if your buildings are old, they're different, fire codes weren't adapted.
Right.
And so they could just jump from one building to the next in the eaves or someplace like that.
Yeah.
The roofs are still a problem. If the fire is going to jump, shall we say, it's that hot.
Right.
It can still cause problems.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to move on to another image. Okay. So this by itself might confuse people. Do you want to set this up?
Yeah.
This is really the start of you photographing archives at the museum.
Yeah. This is the first object that I photographed here at the museum. It is a scrapbook that was anonymously assembled. That's a little insider info that you actually provided me, which is a fantastic story on how this scrapbook came to be, which I love. The story
we'll
of
save
it,
that
we'll
for
save
your
it another time.
project.
Yeah. But yeah, so Por la Gente was a community organization, Latino community organization that fought for tenants' rights and for affordable housing. And so they're one of the groups that, I really admire personally, and I felt obliged that they be a part of my telling of this history. So I was very excited to learn of the existence of these scrapbooks. And so then, again, I isolate the object, and the idea is so that others know that this artifact exists and that someone cared. A whole bunch of people cared, and their history is within this single object. And so that's just something to kind of revel and think about. When I photograph this object in particular, I almost kind of felt like I was photographing a person. Like there was a whole lived person here, and so that you could see there's kind of like this a soft focus that kind of like fades off when you look at the right side of the image. So I kind of play on depth, and it's very profound because the word arson is right there on the cover. It speaks directly to what it is, and so boldly. I mean,
Sure.
And so then it kind of like, the focus kind of just like tapers off and gets like kind of blurry, and it's like kind of like, almost a disappearing history.
And there are, 4 scrapbooks?
There are 3 official scrapbooks and then like a 4th little miscellaneous
a smaller
guy
album
in there. But they're amazingly put together and wonderfully archived digitally.
Want to give credit to Maria Lara, who was our education curator. She's actually going to be a guest in a couple of weeks, and someone you should meet, actually.
That would be great. Yeah.
And she scanned every page.
Thank you.
And these are on our collections website.
Yep.
And so you can just simply put in the words Por la Gente.
Yep.
which translates for the people.
Yeah.
Okay. And every page is readable, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, what you're doing is you're coming in and looking at the actual object.
Yeah.
If everyone called and said, I want to see the actual object, Rand Hoppe, our collections manager, would kill me.
Yeah.
But we did give you special access. Yeah. But there is access for most of these items, and in this case, page by page on the website. So we work hard to archive, to scan, catalog, so that people don't have to come here and do it. But your project is different because you're putting the artifacts in a different context. And this project is so important that, that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
And I guess we might have maybe one more slide, which.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That's another one of the specs.
Okay. So here's another way that you shot it.
Yeah.
And I forgot we were going to show this one.
Okay.
So I guess you might as well talk about what's the significance of the paper.
Yeah. So the paper is basically based off of the story that you shared.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because these were, I guess I can quickly say the story a little bit.
Sure.
They were boxed for a very long time, and then they were opened. And the idea of them kind of being like this gift,
right,
is essentially the theme of.
Sure. I guess I'll just elaborate a little bit more, but essentially these were sent by someone in Brooklyn, which we never were able to trace. It was through a P.O. box, and they were sent to Tom Oliveri, one of our most favorite people in Hoboken. Yeah. Tom is deceased, but anyone who knew him, he touched them in a special way.
My personal hero.
Okay, and you never even met him except through stories and maybe our chapbook and other things. Yeah. And Tom actually these were sent to him at City Hall, boxed up with his name on it. They never opened them up. They sat in City Hall for a couple of years because Tom was on sick leave and then retired out. Yeah. And then, he eventually went back to the office or had a discussion like I should clean out my desk. And people remembered that this box had arrived years ago. Right. They were actually using the box to support the office Christmas tree. But then when Christmas was over one year, they go, wow, Tom's back in town and, we should connect. Yeah. And eventually they came our way at Tom's wish. Yeah. And it was pretty intense.
That's so cool.
And they're one of the best resource. I mean, if you had to go through the newspapers
which I've
for
done.
those 3 years.
I've done it.
You did it.
It's
then
not
you
fun. It's not fun.
Right. And then you found these.
Yeah.
So, that was a month. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, research is fun, and it's how you get acclimated to your project.
Yeah.
And so the research is just as important as anything else, right?
Yeah, the research is the thing that, for me, I've done historical kind of works before. Research is a thing that it is a vital part of this process. For me, I have to be the most informed person, or I desire to be the most informed person in the room.
Right.
Because it emboldens me and it builds confidence.
Right.
In others.
Sure.
Trust.
Sure.
So it's like our relationship, when we first spoke.
Right. We're bros now.
Yeah, we're bros now. Yeah, straight up. And so then, I coming at you with all this information, dates, names, and you're just like, okay, you trusted me, you believed in me. And so, I want to be as well versed in the history as I possibly can. So I love to obtain all this information and absorb all of this information, and kind of, build a timeline of events, get the names right, get the places right. I'm kind of orderly like that. And,
sure.
I'm a history nerd, a geek of sorts. So for me, it's a labor of love,
Right.
It's not easy, but.
Sure. Well, here at the museum, many of us are, we're getting older, so it's great to meet someone younger who's interested in this
fill out an
topic.
application.
There you go. You can be our photographer in residence. So,
One day a week.
Yeah,
like that.
sure. And Eric was on again, Eric Kammer, and he was sort of, I think some of the names we mentioned, such as Tom and others, he kind of goes, these are good people. And, and mentioned they're not with us, but we do remember them. We do have another program we call our chapbook program, where we interview long-term residents. And, at a certain point, time takes its toll and they're no longer with us, but we do have pretty good record of a great conversation.
I think those they're amazing resources.
Right.
It's such a wealth of information about place and time.
Sure.
So intimate.
Right. Which reminds me, I should give a shout out to Holly Metz, who puts them together. I do assist, but Holly is the one who makes sure they do happen on there. So, I did want to spend a good core of this about your project. We're hoping people will reach out about it. I mean, wouldn't it be great to talk to a policeman, a police chief, a fire chief, people who are still in the community. And then the person, I'm segueing from that, but we're going to do everything we can to help on that. And this happens to be a page of the scrapbook. And it was not only Hoboken, this scrapbook, it was kind of Hudson County, but Hoboken is featured the most. So they're very modest, but to see all that information together is kind of intense.
A really big compendium of history.
Right. I mean, you go through these page by page and it's like that montage of just flickering headlines and the old style movie might do. And you're going, oh my God, I need some air here.
I feel like I'm getting to the point with my research. I mean, like I said, I've been reading so many news clippings that have been digitized for, I would say some months now. And it's gets intense. I'm ready to speak to.
You want the people.
I'm ready to speak
to
some people about some history.
But I do want to spend a little time to show your other projects.
Okay.
And I guess Rand will put them up, and maybe you could say a little bit about each one. Okay. We still have a good 20 minutes or so.
Okay. Again, I think the question of how gentrification is possible, how it happens, is the thing that brought me to the Hoboken, the story of Hoboken. And so then in doing my research, I discovered the arsons, and then in discovering the arsons, I learned that a very large Puerto Rican population were affected and were victims of, either died in these fires, and certainly were displaced. And so I found that out quickly into my research. And I guess, that's just how the stars align, because a lot of my work, my previous works, revolve around Puerto Rican identity and culture and heritage. So I'm kind of like a Puerto Rican storyteller. And so, so when I learned that of the arsons, I really set off to learn.
So have you done other projects with that perspective? Or?
Yeah. So the image that's up on the screen now is from a project that I did in 2017 in Puerto Rico, just before Hurricane Maria, before anyone knew what was going to happen and the devastation that it was going to cause. It was just that last moment before, the ship sinks and needs to be rebuilt.
Right.
And so the project it was again kind of like this look into heritage and culture. The twist or the idea of the project was I based the photographs around the music of a very popular Puerto Rican singer from the island, who's an iconoclast, who's like
the biggest folkloric icon, musical icon of Puerto Rico's history. His name is Ismael Rivera. And so then I created this work called A Visual Guide to the Heart, seen through the music of Ismael Rivera. And so essentially what I did was I took some songs and I absorbed them. I obsessed over them, every word, every lyric. And then I received some funding from a College of Holy Cross in Massachusetts, great college. And I went to the island to photograph these songs in life, So it's like kind of like I was armed with this, like, all these lyric and all this information, and then I just kind of visualized it. And so this photograph is a depiction of that, simply someone playing music and enjoying.
Kind of in reverie, huh? In
Yeah.
the flow,
Yeah,
as we say.
And so then a big part of the project, one of the songs that I worked on is called Las Caras Lindas, and that means beautiful faces. And it was a song performed by Ismael Rivera that spoke about the beauty of blackness. And so, this image, does both. It depicts the beauty of blackness and music.
Right.
So
Beautifully lit, too,
Yeah.
for recognizing the light.
Yeah. And another historical reference. This is one of Puerto Rico's, I think, only kind of like project housing communities. It's called Llorentorre, which is in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And Ismael Rivera was kind of idolized in these projects. It's like kind of like a dangerous place, but he would be able to chill there anytime he wanted. These were like his old stomping grounds.
Right.
So it's just kind of another dot that I got to connect,
Mm-hmm.
and that, I love doing that, I guess, with pictures.
So, Ted, just before we go on to this image, Tiffany Fisher was trying to find out how long have we had the chapbooks.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not exactly sure when Tom died. It was not too long
If I'm
before.
not mistaken, I think he passed in 2014.
Okay, so
Some years.
that's probably about right.
Yeah.
And so we've had them, 6 years plus, shall we say, and they've probably been online for, I'll say, 5 years on there. But the easiest way to access them is online.
Yeah, it's super easy if you just search Por la Gente scrapbook.
Right.
It really it comes up very quickly, and you're able to browse through the entire collection.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. So going back to your images.
Yeah.
And this is part of that same series, or is
this is a part of the same series? Yeah, for the same song.
Okay.
Caras Lindas. Again, depicting a Black person, and all of the visual symbolism that I guess comes with that. I was even kind of struck by, in the left corner, you'll see RAS, just kind of like letters from the title of the song.
Okay. And so, I don't. So, would you also have lyrics of the song with these photographs? Is it that literal, or is it more like a feel of the island? And
I'm working on. They were exhibited at the college that granted funds, and I hope to have another exhibition. Hopefully soon, as things normalize themselves and open back up, and at some point to publish a book of the work.
Okay,
and I would definitely figure out a way to incorporate the lyrics.
And is
that
the
context.
singer still with us?
No.
Okay. Okay.
So this is another image from that project, and it kind of connects this singer with an image of Malcolm X, which speaks to the singer's history of fighting iniquity.
And that's the singer below?
That singer is below. Yeah, that's Ismael Rivera. And then above is this portrait of Malcolm X. So It's symbolic, and probably one of the first times
I guess this picture really makes you think about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe him being this kind of, pioneer for social justice.
Right. Jules Herbert is reacting to the music work, shall we say?
Great, thank you so much,
is
Jules.
drawing it. And we're moving on.
Cool. Yeah. Another
same
image.
series.
Yep. Same series. Same song. Same
Right.
series. Same song. 3 sisters that were found I came upon at a beach, and I don't know. They look like mermaids to me.
And or muses. Right.
Or muses.
3 muses.
Their hair was.
And
I don't know if
so,
you can see it, but it was
would
green.
you you are recognizing a moment as opposed to setting something up, like
Right.
the archive work you're doing
This
now
is
is set up.
Yeah,
but
this is the archive stuff that I'm doing is a whole new world for me. I have not done anything like this before, so it's like kind of like a new frontier for me. But exciting. A lot of my prior works have been based on sort of a street photography type style.
Right. So I would recognize, photography's changed so much
Yeah.
from, shall we say, the heyday. And so with digital, it's easier to manipulate and things of that sort. But I'm going to guess
Yeah.
that you're a purist. I mean, that was
Yeah.
the sky
Yeah.
that was there.
Yeah. This is not edited in any way. Not overly by any means. Yeah, this is the image as it was seen, as it was captured. I work digitally, but I used to work in film back in the day, my early work, which I think you
Probably for about a year, considering your age.
No, man, I worked for some years.
Okay.
Shooting on film, paying the price, going and getting it developed,
Giving blood,
and
right.
printed shit. Where am I going to get the money?
Right.
Yeah. So a lot has changed. Yeah, shooting digitally, you can take so many more pictures. But I still think that I have this kind of like old school soul mentality. So I try not to be too much of a shutterbug and just snap away and, think a little bit
It's
more.
tempting, though, isn't it? It's so hard.
Yeah, man.
But then you have to edit afterwards and you go crazy.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want any of that. No.
You want to be out there photographing.
Yeah.
They're asking, can you post the name of the song that goes with the pictures? I'm not sure if we can do that. Can you say it very slowly,
Yeah.
the name of the song?
So 3 songs that I explored for this project were Caras Lindas. Another song was La Perla, and A Medias No. Those were the 3 songs.
Okay.
I don't know if I could say that any slower.
So maybe we'll post those
Yeah.
titles
Yeah,
at the end of the presentation
For sure,
for that, so Ellen can check it out. But good question, Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask the same thing, but I just figured it's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure with some Googling and the right title.
Yeah. Another picture captured at the beach. A lot of photographs happen on the beach in Puerto Rico. If you want to find the people, you go to the beach. Street photography on the island, off the beach, is difficult.
Why is that?
I don't know. There's just not.
People are
Not a very.
people are freer on the beach, I'm going to guess.
No, it's just not a very pedestrian place. A lot of motorists.
Okay.
And so people are in their cars or in their homes, or
Right.
they're not out in the street, walking
Okay.
about.
Sure. Well, beach is kind of leisure.
Beach
so
is the
people
way.
are
It's very
you know,
public. It's very
right and
communal
freeing.
and-
And
yeah.
if they're at the beach, they're probably relaxing.
They're chilling.
If they're inland, they're
Home.
home.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Another image of a boy in a historically dominant Black community called Lois Aldea. on the island, not very far from the capital, from San Juan. Big Black community. Yeah.
And, I guess the Superman shirt is what makes this shot.
That's the thing. That's the thing that makes it. Yeah. I guess a little context. I was hanging out, and I think this boy's mom yelled at him, and he started crying. It was just a little thing. He got in trouble. And I think I told him, "Hey, man, stop crying. Don't worry about it. Wipe those tears. Let me take a picture of you." And he kind of puffed up, bucked up. Let me take his picture. Yeah, it's a nice one. And the Superman, yeah, for sure. and in front of bars instead of behind them.
Right. Okay.
Now, this is another image that goes with the song La Perla, symbolic to that song. If anyone that's interested can look up the lyrics and learn a little bit about the song.
So if you were displaying these, would you play it with the music?
It's definitely possible. The way when I did the exhibition in 2017, actually when Maria was happening here in the States, I had an exhibition in Massachusetts. The curator, Roger Hankins, we had decided to create a collage of the photographs.
Sure.
And it was in doing that, that they kind of looked like songs.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be all the images that pertain to one song were up.
Okay.
Kind of like all over
the
place.
Sure.
And it kind of had like a musical sense to it. So that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this image was taken with the purposes of having it be with the song called La Perla.
And I guess we're going to move on to...
Yep.
Can you translate first?
Promesa es pobreza. Yeah, promesa is the promesa bill that is being crafted here in the States with, I don't know, with what collaboration between the island itself, that it essentially deals with the debt.
Okay.
Rico's debt.
So it's not independence.
No, it's just promesa es pobreza. It's essentially saying that what promesa promises in reality is poverty. Pobreza means poverty. So it's essentially
debt
saying,
is poverty.
Yeah, it's
right. So
this proposed bill,
is going to just sink us deeper.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, what's going to happen here?
Another image taken in a auditorium, kind of just symbolic of, I guess, solidarity. Someone standing by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Are they on the same issue as the billboard in the previous shot, or are they independents? I'm trying
to think. This goes for a song called A Medias No. And A Medias No is a song that essentially cares to say, A Medias No means half not. A Medias No means kind of like half not. So it's like, I don't want half of any. Basically, the singer is proclaiming, I don't want half of anything. I want everything that is owed to me and everything that I deserve, including my dignity.
So it sounds like there are a lot of songs that are social protest and issues.
Yeah, that was a really big political social protest song that was a part of the project. And so then I was fortunate enough to actually, I guess, for the purposes of the project and the work, I was there during these protests that were happening in the University of Puerto Rico, where there were humongous budget cuts happening that were like so devastating. They were like borderline criminal, man. And so the students decided to occupy the grounds and bar themselves on the grounds and not let anyone in. And they manifested, I guess that's a way to say that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The ground, they occupied the grounds.
Took over.
For a long time.
Yeah,
for
right.
Long weeks and weeks. And so I was there for that. and those images during that protest lend themselves to this song.
Okay.
Yes, no, and
Sure.
that was the connection.
Right.
That I made. Just more images. That's a statue of Roberto Clemente,
Right.
famous
baseball.
player.
It's
And then
almost
that's
like
just
he's
that one
shouting.
moment. Yeah,
The guy in the foreground
Yeah,
is sort of
yeah.
shouting, like,
yeah, kind of like
you
a
know, go.
baseball thing going on, but for a different repurposed.
That's right. That's
Repurposed.
right. Cool. So we're probably going to speed it up a
Yeah,
little
if you want to
bit.
move
I'm so
through the
sorry.
images, no, please
Yeah,
feel
let's see.
free. You can go through them a little bit faster. This is an image that was taken. This is one of the more popular images of my project because it's just so emotional.
And what's going on there?
Yeah, a teacher. This is the person behind the bars is occupying the grounds, and they needed to hide their identity, so they wore masks because Puerto Rico has a terrible history of spying on its people and threatening them and persecuting them in ways that are illegal, should be illegal. So they hide their identity, they mask themselves. And so then I was there, and this woman recognized, she's a teacher, she recognized the student even though he was masked. So this was this very emotional moment where they recognize each other and they're supporting each other.
I mean, it's interesting. We don't see their faces,
no,
but each one of those hands is pretty intense.
It's just all over the place.
It's like, it's like little sculptures and tentacles, and they're like they're one through the hands, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, more protest,
right,
and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can move on to the next one. Same.
This is the students protesting and they're camping out.
Yeah, and this here is an image of a drawing of the singer himself, Ismael Rivera. Drawn onto this instrument.
Right.
So
is he comparable to a singer that would be in this country that you can think of? I know that's making you work here, but I mean, is it a non-violent protest? So would it, I mean, is he into, his perspective is sometimes you just gotta, be forceful and take control, or is he more of a nonviolent perspective?
He never really, his songs were not really about violence.
Okay.
Or by taking anything by force.
Just wondering.
They were his songs. I think he came from a time, or maybe it was just in his character. His songs were more aware.
Okay.
They created an awareness. They celebrated culture. They asked people to look a little deeper within themselves.
Right.
About their communities, how they will bond, their unity, and things like that. So he's idolized, he's treasured. He'll live on forever.
The music lives on.
The music lives on. That's for damn sure.
Okay.
And so then this is an image that's symbolic. This is a kind of like a spray painted mural of him, and I was fortunate enough to see this person's hand, and that hand is almost like going into the mind of Ismael Rivera.
Cool. And blue tears.
And blue tears. You have a tree here, life and death.
It almost reminds me of like a native headdress or something.
Yeah, for sure. As someone, I was again fortunate enough to be on the island during the time of the liberation of a political prisoner who was imprisoned for 36 years and pardoned by President Barack Obama. And his name was Oscar Lopez Rivera. And he was imprisoned on charges of conspiracy and sedition.
Right.
And so he was freed that day. He came home.
Cool. I'm sure a lot of people don't even realize that Puerto Rico is part of the United States. I mean, it's a very interesting history.
Puerto Rican history,
very confusing.
American history. So
right. Exactly.
Educate yourselves.
Right. Because they'll talk about immigration, and which usually infers another country, and they'll talk about immigration for Puerto Rico.
There's a lot of, I guess, corruption and indignities that happen to Puerto Ricans, and the United States government is, because Puerto Rico exists, is
an imperialistic one. I mean, it's almost like,
Sure.
you know. This was for a song La Perla. In that song speaks a little bit about poverty and the decay of this very specific area in Puerto Rico that has a tremendous history of its own. And so these were some steps there that are this comet, you know,
Right.
that's what steps look like down there.
Sure.
So document that. New and old.
Mm-hmm.
And this is again for La Perla, the song La Perla.
I didn't realize so much of your work was music connected.
Yeah,
And of course, I'm thinking how we can steer you into music for the Hoboken work.
Boy.
I got some ideas if you want them. Okay.
I'm willing to hear your ideas, Bob. I am. Yeah. Okay.
And we are wrapping it up.
Awesome.
Let's hold up our Hoboken mugs just to show people. Can we show people there? I want to thank Rand Hoppe for engineering, directing this program. And we have created Hoboken Talk mugs. And this is what we give our guests each week.
Excellent quality mug. I really enjoyed
this. Could be the best
drinking
Hoboken Talk mug you'll ever find.
Boy, this is a good one. This is a keeper.
Definitely. Yeah. And good conversation. I wanted to thank you guys for checking us out tonight. If you are interested in following things up with Chris, we really hope you do.
Yeah.
And I did want to thank our sponsors for this, Applied Companies, who is our main benefactor. And we're so thankful for them for the space that we call our Hoboken Historical Museum. And then also, Applied Companies is, again, I thank them every day. I truly do. They changed our lives here in Hoboken with the museum. And then, of course, last year and this year, we received funds from the estate of Donald Shackett. So this program, in some ways, is in memory of Donald Shackett. Donald moved here in the late 60s, 70s, fell in love with the city, fell in love with the architecture, embraced the progressive ideas at the time, and was so kind to us and leaving us in his estate plans. And so, again, thank you, Donald. So we're segueing out. I'm sorry we're not playing the music from your musician.
I should have sent it to you.
Well,
right up.
When your project is done, or at some phase, of course, we would love to exhibit here in the museum.
For sure.
And,
my work in a large part is for this community,
right?
New and old.
Sure. Okay.
So look forward to it.
We're going to do this. Okay. Signing off. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rand Hoppe. And we'll see you next week. Our guests are, we have Victoria Moyeno. I'll be interviewing again. But the following week, we will have Jack Silbert as the host, and he'll be interviewing one of his music friends, and that would be Karen Cool. So we're trying to mix it up. If you do have ideas for guests, please let us know. This is a new project for the museum. It could be for us the best thing that's come out of the pandemic, and it's a new way to reach people. Check us out on our YouTube channel, Archives, and spread the word. This program is building. Nighty-o.